The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of Green Acres and our guests. These general gardening tips and suggestions may work for you, as well as those from alternative sources. When using any garden products or tools, read and follow all label directions. And learn how to make your yard summer strong at bewatersmart.info.
The Green Acres Garden Podcast is the podcast dedicated to helping gardeners hone their growing skills while we celebrate our love of plants. So whether you're new to growing or a seasoned gardener, you're sure to learn something new. Join the fun as we have conversations with world-class growers, passionate green thumbs, and professional garden experts from Green Acres Nursery and Supply. Listen every week. We'll answer questions you didn't know you had. So Austin, a few weeks back, we were at Harvest Day. Did you have fun?
Right. Yeah, I had a great time at Harvest Day. That's like one of the best days for gardening, man. That's all the people were out there. That was good times.
You were representing well for Green Acres, and we brought some produce out there to give away. We ran into a listener right off the bat. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. Pat.
Yes. So he comes up. He's like, hey, my name's Pat. I'm a listener. I'm a gardener. I love growing. I love the pod. We're like, dude, this is awesome. What a nice guy. And he's like, yeah, I got a big garden. I'm really into like growing rare fruit and all this. I'm like, dude, this guy's he's serious.
Nice.
He's passionate.
Yeah.
And so I forgot, as he's walking away, Austin, I grabbed him. I was like, hey, can you give me, I'm like, if you could give our listeners like one bit of advice from your perspective, like what would that be?
Ooh, what did he say?
He thought about it for a moment and he's like, don't get discouraged.
Okay.
He's like, he's like, you can learn anything that good happens or bad happens in the garden. He's like, you can just learn from it. So if you had some struggles this summer, just don't let it get you down. Don't be discouraged. Just take it on the chin and just move forward.
Yeah, so true. I love that.
Thought that was awesome.
Yeah, all right. Nice, Pat.
Yeah.
He gets it.
So thank you, Pat. Good luck to you, man.
And we got to meet a lot of other cool listeners, too.
That was
cool.
cool.
A lot of guests from the show.
It was like a who's who. It was like
of
half of our years of people that we've interviewed out there.
That was good
Beautiful
times.
time. The master gardeners are awesome. And it got me thinking, a few weeks back, but at the same time, I went to the state fair, ran into the tree circus.
Oh, there we go.
So they were out there. We've had them on the pod, months back. It was great people. They just travel around, just educating children and adults all about the value of trees and what arborists do. And they had tree climbing, kind of a demo where kids could get suited up and pretend to climb a tree. It was pretty sweet, and gave me a big old sweaty hug out there. I loved it, and it got me thinking, Austin.
Yeah.
We got to do an episode on trees.
Of course.
So producer Greg got, he puts the wheels in motion and did the dirty work, and he got us somebody for today's episode.
We got a tree person.
So we're talking trees. Fall is right around the corner. So we got hooked up with this gentleman, Matt Morgan. He's a 20-year tree expert. He works for Davey Tree. You can check him out at davey.com, right? And so we got to have a nice sit down with him. And I got to pick his 20 years of experience, brain, and trees, and just ask him so many questions. So I cannot wait to share this with people.
Yeah, totally. Matt was a great guy, and it's so cool to learn more about Davey and what they do. They do a lot of different things, but they are tree people. They're arborists.
Tree people since the 1800s. He was schooling us up.
He said that. I couldn't believe it. It was
wild.
almost like 150 years of Davey being around. That's wild. And we got to hear a little bit about the background there. That was so cool. But you mentioned fall is coming up, and that kind of connected to the tree thing. So, Kevin, I just want to ask you, why does fall make you think about trees?
Because we know everyone, I think, thinks spring is where it's at for planting. And you can plant a ton of things in spring. But the best time, and I don't want to spoil it, but Matt agrees, fall is the absolute best time to plant, especially trees. And we'll get into why, but for me, there's warm soil. The temps are just warm enough to where the plants can kind of keep growing, but they're cooling down. The days are getting shorter, so the stress on them to get rooted in isn't as great. So less stress, but you still have the warm soil. They have a whole time of a whole season from the fall through the winter to get rooted in for spring.
Right on.
So we are, even though we're right now,
warm soil helps the roots grow.
Absolutely.
Right?
So even though, like I said, the days are getting shorter, the air temperatures are starting to drop a little bit, the soil kind of is still warm from the summer. And so it allows those roots to actively grow a little bit and hopefully spread out into that soil to get rooted in and to get established, as we say.
Right.
So this is, whether it's trees, shrubs, perennials, or you're re-landscaping your yard, if you really want to put a lot of plants in and have, as the greatest chance of survival, fall is where it's at.
Nice.
So people, I'm sure the listeners have already heard this before, but fall is for planting, and especially for planting trees. Here in Sacramento, we're in the city of trees. We want to promote them. We love them. Trees do so much for us. Just the air, the canopy that it creates, the shade, the shelter for wildlife and food and all that. There's so many benefits to them. If you could create a machine that could do all the things that trees do, create oxygen, filter rainwater, reduce erosion, create shade, provide food for animals, and so on and so forth. I mean, you would be the best inventor ever.
Right.
But thankfully for us, Mother Nature is already that.
Has already provided
and
trees.
So we're going to learn about some of the best varieties for our area, some of the best practices to keep them healthy.
Matt brought up some varieties I don't think about that much. He seems to really love the red maple, and it's like, we're not even talking about red maples enough. Let's get
Not
into
enough.
it.
You see them a lot around town, especially in like public spaces or in like private business areas, because they're just so beneficial. They're easy to grow. They're fast growing. That beautiful fall color. But I mean, I will let Matt get into it because it's fun to hear from him. So the do's and don'ts of planting to maintaining, and just how to deal with arborists and when to call them, how to navigate that. There's a lot of listeners who probably, like myself, have had some mature trees on their property that need maintenance, that either need to be pruned.
A little weight reduction,
some healthy pruning to keep them up off your building, to keep those limbs healthy. You don't want them falling on a person or a car. There's so many things you can do to keep your trees healthy. So Matt's here to help us out.
All right, let's jump into our interview with Matt. We sat down with Matt at the Green Acres Nursery and Supply in Elk Grove to talk everything trees. Here we go.
So my name is Matt Morgan. I'm with the Davey Tree Expert Company out of Sacramento here. I'm the district manager, and we deal with trees.
I love it. I love trees. I take it you must be pretty passionate about trees.
Oh yeah, after 20 years, I'd say I'm pretty happy with it.
That is awesome. So what do trees mean to you in our community? Why should we celebrate trees? Why do we need to care for our trees? And why do we need to plant more trees?
Really, we're just trying to make a sustainable living area, right? Trying to keep our canopy for shade, trying to keep water retention, and trying to keep the area that we have here perfect for us, right?
Love it. You mentioned water retention. How do trees help keep the water around?
Roots absorb water. So if we have all this rain and it's just going to run off, our roots can sustain some of that water and keep it in the soil, which is great.
Absolutely. We need that. We don't want to just run it straight back into the ocean.
No, we'd rather not.
I love it. So in today's episode, I really want to give our listeners an opportunity to learn from you as much as possible. And so that way they can either choose a tree that is going to be the best option for them and where they live, but also maybe take care of the trees they already have in the most effective, efficient ways. I know I've had some trees that mean a lot to me, and so I want to see them do really well. I've had some trees that I've had to lose, and that's a bummer. And so we want to help our listeners out today. Are you ready?
And that's the goal. Yes, very much so. I mean, that's the goal, to try and make sure our trees are healthy, they last for a while, but they're also safe.
Absolutely. So when someone said even though it's pretty warm right now as we do this interview, fall is right around the corner and things will cool down. Everybody, I think, always has this idea that spring is all about planting, which you can plant a lot of things in spring. They don't realize that fall is an amazing time to plant trees. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, completely true. Fall, usually October, November is a great time to do your planting. One of the best reasons, because the tree goes dormant, but those roots are still living, they're still growing. So with them being able to grow over the fall or over the winter, they can actually really get a good root ball growth and be ready for next year.
When it comes to maybe the right plant in the right place, how do we select the right tree for our site?
First, we got to look long term. Like, what's the size of this tree going to be, and then how much area do you have that for that tree to grow, right? And so, if we have a small yard, we may want to go with a smaller scale tree, maybe a tree that's only 30 feet, 40 feet tall, right? We don't want to be planting a redwood that's going to be 100 feet tall in this little confined area for its roots.
Even though we love our redwoods.
Even though we do, even though we love them, but we got to pick that right tree for that right spot, right?
Sounds great. What are some trees that are just your go-to favorites for our region, maybe medium size up to large?
So my small to medium-sized tree that I pretty much recommend for anybody would be a red maple. Red maple has a great canopy, great coloration.
Acer rubrum.
Yeah, oh yeah, very much, perfect, right? The October Glory is usually my go-to.
Beautiful.
But there's definitely a couple others that are out there that have some great color change in the fall, which are really nice trees. The nice thing about them is they stay smaller, so they can fit in most of these places that have smaller yards.
Now, how does the canopy shape also affect the use of trees? I've noticed some of those maples will have a very upright.
They are.
And so you can, even though it has some nice height, they don't spread out too far,
Yep.
so they can kind of be a little more contained.
And that's kind of the nice thing about them, because you don't necessarily want your trees growing into your neighbors or growing out over the sidewalks and things like that. So having this more columnar shape like a red maple does just adds to a nice landscape.
Now, what are the benefits from, because that is a deciduous tree, it will lose its leaves in the winter.
Yep.
Now, are there benefits when you're planting a deciduous tree, or are there times when an evergreen might be a little bit better of a choice?
Yes and no. I mean, the nice thing about a deciduous tree, a lot of times you're going to have good color. You're going to let a little bit more light in the wintertime. So,
Warm that
wintertime,
house up
you're trying to warm
bit.
up the house just a little bit more with that sunlight. So you lose those leaves and you get more sunlight, but you get the benefit of the shade in the summertime. So that's really nice about them.
Absolutely. We were just out at a good friend of the podcast, Michael Glassman. He's a landscape designer, and he was using the podocarpus in between his home and his neighbors.
Yeah.
And it was like a medium-sized tree, evergreen, and he's like, it's all about just privacy.
And there's some great trees like a podocarpus that is a great privacy tree. They don't need a lot of planting space. They're very columnar shaped, so they grow straight up for the most part. You can do a lot of things with them as far as shaping to keep that privacy, which is really nice. Carolina cherry is another wonderful evergreen that would be good for something like that.
Right on. Now, do you have a personal favorite?
I'm a big fan of the oaks. I mean, I love oaks. I love
Same.
redwoods. Redwoods, even though they aren't meant for our area, they're just a beautiful tree, so I love seeing them.
Now, you brought up oaks. What makes oaks so special to our area?
Oaks are our native species, right? They're one of the very few trees that we have that are native here, and there's a couple of them. But they're majestic trees. They were here before anybody else.
I love them. They're so beautiful. Especially like the older they get, the prettier they get. Are there any others that really just you notice that just tend to do really well with our heat and our our dry weather?
So there's a couple of them. One of my other top ones is a Chinese pistache. Chinese pistache is another great tree that
Fall
has
color.
Wonderful coloration. Oh yeah. And so trying to pick the right one for that is really important. They're definitely a little bit different than the red maple as far as shape goes. Instead of having that columnar shape, they're a little bit more of umbrella canopy, which can give you a little bit different shade. Whether you're putting it in the middle of a lawn and you're trying to shade that front lawn, or having more of a spread of a tree. One of the downsides to them that I like to tell people is they do take a long time to grow. They're a much slower growing tree than the red maples, but it'll take some time, but they'll eventually be really nice trees.
Rewarding once they do get big.
Oh yeah. Oh, with that color, it's
that fiery kind of reddish orange.
Sure is.
Yeah, I love them.
One of my other favorite trees, if you have the room for it and you have the space, being the larger scale would be a Zelkova tree. Zelkova tree is a wonderful structure, but it is much larger tree.
Are those the ones that have like that serrated leaf edge?
That's it.
Yeah.
That would be another name for it, a serrated elm or something like that.
Yeah, those are cool.
But yeah, the Zelkova is a wonderful tree. Very limited pest issues with them, which is really nice.
Gotta love that.
And really pretty hardy for our climate. So.
Now, what's just a bulletproof small tree? Because I know a lot of our yards and the newer homes are getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
But you still want to pack in some beauty, things that can look nice, give you some interest, and maybe some shade.
Smaller trees are going to be like a redbud. A redbud,
Yeah.
I absolutely love redbuds. They're beautiful pink flowers on them. Somewhat native, not necessarily down here, but up in the hills a little bit. But beautiful trees, and on that much smaller scale. 10 to 15 feet is kind of what you're looking for.
Pretty
for that
manageable.
Size. Very manageable. Very manageable for small yards.
Well, can I ask you, what are your thoughts on the Palo Verde tree?
You know what? That's funny because I just had a conversation with that recently with one of our other sales guys. And Palo Verdes are really making their way into town, and it's a wonderful tree. It really is. When we look at future of what Sacramento's going to be like, we really look at what Arizona's like, because that's ultimately what we're going to be here in Sacramento. So Palo Verdes are great. They're a great small tree. They grow very quickly in our climate, I've noticed. A little bit of pest issue, but very minor. The biggest issue that I do see with them is because of how fast they're growing, because of our soil, they tend to fall over. They're falling over a little bit. They don't have the stability in the root system to be able to manage the size that they're getting to.
So how would you manage that? Is it just staking it with lodge poles early on?
Staking, we talked a little bit about fall planting, how fall planting can give a head start to that root system. So getting that done early in that fall getting the stakes in there, and then keeping it a little bit more pruned until you get a really nice root system.
That's great advice. Because we don't have these big, long, heavy limbs with a shallow, small
Because that's
root
what
system.
they do. They just spread out really nice. They're beautiful trees, but like I said, they just grow super
Well,
fast.
they're used to the dry. They're used to the desert, soil. So they're probably a decent soil, pretty nutrient rich.
Yeah.
You're irrigating me.
Everybody's watering.
Yes, I'll grow.
Yeah, they're really happy.
But they're pretty. That photosynthetic bark,
Yeah.
that green bark, those yellow blossoms. I mean, they're pretty cool.
They are.
Kind of have a little bit lacier look to them with the leaves, and
Yep.
they really stand out for me. I love them.
Dogwoods is another wonderful tree that I really
yeah.
like. Another
Come on.
small tree.
Beautiful flowers.
Great flower on them. Again, on that smaller scale, that would fit perfectly.
Like an under
in
canopy,
area.
understory kind of
Yep.
tree.
Yep.
Saw those
Really-
in Yosemite a few months back.
Yeah, they're
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Man, dude, the white ones.
You
like-
catch those in the spring during flower, and they're gorgeous.
Yeah, they rock. Now, what is the best way to actually water our trees? If you have one, you've already got one established. What is really the best practice for keeping our trees healthy once we actually have them in our yard?
So once they're there, once they're established, not changing that environment. So a lot of people, back a few years ago when we were still in drought, they started getting rid of their lawn. They had a tree in their yard, they have this lawn, they just stopped watering all of a sudden and saw a huge decrease in the health of those trees. So trying to provide adequate water around that landscape and what that tree has been having for the entire life, basically, is what's important.
Yeah, try to give it what it's used to.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what are some of them when someone actually does get their tree planted? So they bring one home, they got their red maple or their oak in there. They're bringing it home. When you have a perfect spot for it, enough space. What are some of the things that they should consider to make sure it gets off to a great start?
Yeah, so perfect planting area, right? Making sure your hole that you dig is big enough. Make sure you're not overwatering it and just having the whole root ball sit in water. That's so adequate drainage. That's going to be super important. And then making sure you're watering deeply to that root ball. A lot of the biggest mistakes that I see is they'll have these trees that get planted. 10 years later, that water has never been adjusted of where that water's coming out. You'll see like these emitters that are right at the base of the tree that have never been changed from that original planting.
Where it's like it's watering the trunk.
Yeah, exactly. And so stuff like that has to be adjusted. Whether you're going to go with like a soaker hose around the canopy of the tree, really try and spread out underneath that canopy of the tree, not just that one emitter, but do the entire canopy.
All right, so we got our tree in, we're taking care of it. What other considerations? How are we going to ensure that tree is going to be healthy for the next 50 plus years?
Proper inspection, that's probably the best thing. Have a professional look at it and make sure you aren't leaving things in there like crossing limbs. That can be problematic down the road. One of the biggest things that red maples have an issue with is inclusive bark, where you have limbs that are growing upward and really tight at that crotch attachment, and they tend to break down the road. So making sure you have a good tree and making sure it's looked at on a regular basis is probably the biggest thing that you could do.
That is cool. When should somebody bring in someone like yourself or one of your teammates, like an arborist?
I probably 5 years after planting, something like that. That gives the tree a good amount of time to grow a little bit, get established, see if there's any kind of defects that are still correctable on the tree, and make sure that it can go from there forward.
Very cool.
Realistically, I mean, once your trees are matured, you're looking at yearly, if not every other year, for inspections by an arborist.
Very cool. What are some of the most common issues that arborists are seeing in our area right now when it comes to the health of our trees?
Lack of water is the big one, just because people cut back on their watering so much in the summertime, or they forget to turn them on after they've been off all winter. That's probably one of the biggest, and then changes to the ground. Xeriscaping is a big thing with everybody, with landscapers, and when you take away that lawn that used to be there and all of a sudden you're going with this natural habitat, it changes what the tree's taking in. So that's one of the biggest things that I see.
Is there a tree that you keep seeing and you're like, people keep planting this and you're like, it's driving me nuts because it's not the right tree for our area, or it's just has difficulty or pest issues? Is there a tree that you like direct people to not plant in our area?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of those trees have been taken off the market anymore.
You just don't see them available
You don't
as much.
see things planted as much as you used to, which is good. I mean, that's for the nurseries that are around here that are growing the right trees for our area now, and being able to sell the right trees. Redwoods, it's very seldom that you'll find somebody or an arborist or a landscaper that's going to recommend a redwood just because of their water usage. They still get planted, but just understand that it takes water. It takes time to make those trees.
Certainly. Trees have played a huge role in our region. We've had like history with them. With downtown area has Midtown and East Sac. They have all those beautiful elm trees that have all the issues.
Yeah.
How important is it to keep an eye out for pests and disease in some of our trees? And what are these pests and disease, and how do we keep a lookout?
So yeah, that was a big one years ago. Was with the elm trees, and so really losing a lot of those elms. We've kind of tried to get away from them, but we have new pests that are coming into the state all the time. We have Mediterranean oak borer, which is fairly new in our area.
Ooh, what's that?
Mediterranean oak borer goes after a lot of the native oak trees.
No.
And it's just destroying the canopy throughout Sacramento. So it's one of those things that's hard to protect against. If you're going to do some kind of treatment on it, it's going to be usually too late by the time you actually realize that it's there, which is sad. But we have those. Invasive shothole borer is another one that's in town. That's very recent, within the past year or so.
Are these all beetles or something?
They're all beetles. Yep. And so these beetles in particular, they both carry a fungus when they bore into the tree. They grow the fungus, which stops the movement of nutrients up in the tree.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So they can really be hard to manage.
Nature's wild.
It is. It's amazing that it's taken so long for it to get up to where we are. It's been invasive shothole borer's been in SoCal for 20 years, and it's just finally working its way up here to Northern California.
Now, is that a thing where either science will have to catch up with that, or is it just the trees will have to develop some kind of resilience, or there'll just be some kind of balance? How does that all
There's going to be a
play
balance.
out?
There's going to be a balance eventually. Whether it's proper health for your trees, like that's the biggest thing. You have a healthy tree, healthy soil, you can really combat a lot of these diseases. It's not too often that you're going to have pests that are going to go after a perfectly healthy tree.
I feel like the same thing can be true, and even just in our garden. I've noticed a lot of my vegetable plants and things like that, the smaller plants, one that is super stressed out, I've noticed, is a little bit more likely to have issues with other pests and disease. But the plants, has a healthy start, they tend to be a little more resilient.
For sure. And it follows through with trees. Exactly.
Okay. How important is pruning for our trees, or is that more dependent on the type of tree you plant?
So pruning is going to be, no matter what, you're going to have to prune your tree. Whether it's deadwood that may be hazardous and fall on a car or fall on somebody walking by, that's going to happen throughout the life cycle of a tree. Whether it's, interior deadwood that happens naturally, or if it's some larger limbs that are dying back because of a health issue, but getting those pruned out. Your normal pruning of a tree would consist of weight reduction. That's probably one of the biggest things, because trees start stretching out a little bit too much. So you need to manage that. Everybody talks about trees, how they're self-pruning and things like that in the forest. And yeah, in the forest they are, but you also don't have hazards.
People and vehicles and structures and
exactly.
other. Yeah.
And so you have to manage that a little bit, and doing a pruning, 3 to 5 year basis for pruning is pretty much standard.
Can you tell us a little bit about, you talked about crossing branches?
Yeah.
And can you talk a little about creating a good structure early on for the canopy? I know some trees have more columnar, some are more pyramidal, some kind of broaden out. But there's certain kind of truths, like you don't want the crisscrossing branches, you don't want them touching the ground, you don't want them damaged. And can you tell us a little bit about competing leads and some of these kind of concepts?
Yeah, so as codominants is what we call them, as they start competing, like you said, they can start rubbing on each other. They can really start messing with the structure of the tree.
That's the two major branches of the tree, that kind of are kind of most vertical.
Yep.
Start kind of chasing and racing for who's going to be the number one.
Exactly. Sometimes it's better off to remove one, and so you can have one main stem that's going to take off, so you don't have that inclusive bark that's going to happen down the road. Things like that. Also, planting a tree, don't remove all the limbs all the way off the ground. I see that all the time where somebody will plant a new tree and they're going to raise that canopy up 5 feet off the ground, especially on a red maple.
Yeah.
Right, instantly that same year. And really the tree hasn't been able to adjust to some of that sunlight, and you can really get some sun scald on the trunks, things like that.
Now, we always hear about arborists. These are like the tree doctors. These are the people that they're professionals, they're trained. What does being a certified arborist, what does that actually mean? And how is that different from just like, oh, that's a tree guy?
Yeah. So a certified arborist is a credentialing program that's put through by the International Society of Arboriculture. And so you have to have time in the field, you have to have either a degree or something like that along with it, and then you get to take an exam with the ISA.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you work with I'm sure a lot of colleagues that have gone through this?
Oh yeah. So all of our sales staff are certified arborists. We have 2 that are in the field actually climbing and working as field arborists.
Now, if I walk outside and I start kind of, you said, observe your trees, look at them, get a professional eventually. But when they're early on growing, and I'm not ready to maybe call professional, I'm kind of doing my own thing. What are some of the early signs that I can look for to either head off right away, or things that I can do when that tree's young to kind of get it off to a great start?
So any kind of wilting, of course, right? You start having your leaves start droop a little bit. There's something that's going on. Whether it was a planting issue, it was newly planted, maybe that root ball hasn't expanded all the way, or there was some hard pan that was there. So things like that. But also, if you start seeing browning on your leaves, that's usually going to be a drought issue that's going to be happening. Same thing with sap. If you start seeing sap, right now the crepe myrtles are rampant with aphids.
You know it.
Yeah.
That honeydew is sticky.
Oh, for sure. And so, trying to manage that as much as possible to keep those leaves able to photosynthesize, keeping some of that sooty mold, some of that black stuff that gets on those leaves, keeping them clean.
Yeah, then we'll get powdery mildew in a month or 2 when things cool off.
Exactly. If it doesn't have it already, I know mine next to the pool, they get it all the time.
Yeah.
So things like that, just to keep an eye out for some of those.
So Matt, let's say I've got a pretty mature tree and I'm ready to have it looked at. I'm like, I gotta get a second opinion, and I'm ready to reach out to you. What is that process like? If someone's at home, they're like, I'm ready to call an arborist. It's time. What do they do?
You can call us. Davey.com is our website. You can go there and find us. Put in your zip code, and that'll reach out to the local offices, no matter where you are in the
States. Because you guys are a little bit widespread.
We are, yeah. We're across all 50 states, and including Canada. So we have a pretty big territory that we cover.
When did Davey Tree, when did it start? Who started it?
Davey Tree, John Davey is our original founder. 1880 is when it started. So we've been around for many years.
Gosh, isn't that 1880? What do you think he'd think about you guys today with all the tech?
He'd be blown away. He'd be blown away.
Like a website. The internet.
So there's huge history with Davey. Coming from John Davey, who was an immigrant over here, to some of his sons, Martin L. Davey, who ran the company, to eventually becoming governor of Ohio, which was our birthplace as a company, was Ohio. And so there's a lot of huge history that's there. I want to say we came out to the West Coast in the 50s and moved our way out here, and then even into Canada from that. So yeah, there's been a lot of things that have happened with our company.
Canada, I think there's a few trees up there.
There's a few.
Yeah, gotta go check those trees out. Very cool. Well, before we leave you, first I gotta say thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm learning so much from you, Matt. I love this. What would be your last bit of advice or encouragement to people out there listening who either A, are considering maybe planting a tree or 2 at their house this fall, or had some beautiful mature trees that they're like, maybe I should have this looked at because I want them looking their best. I want to have them around for years to come. What's your bit of advice or encouragement for those people?
If you're planting a tree, get some advice before planting on size, pests, disease, things like that you're going to be getting into in the future, and making sure that tree can last for a long time. That would be the big thing. The second thing, with trees that are already there, get them looked at, make sure they're healthy and can get by through winter. Summer is a big thing with oak trees failing, with summer limb drop, things like that. So making sure you have a properly maintained tree, proper soil health, and you'll be good to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt Morgan, of the Davey Tree Expert himself from Davey Tree. Check him out. Go to davey.com for more information. Matt, thank you so much, man. I loved it. This has been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that was our interview with Matt. Big thank you to Matt. It was such a pleasure meeting you, and I highly recommend to all of our listeners, check out an arborist, visit the ISA to get a certified arborist, or talk to Davey Tree Experts, and they'll help you out. Kevin, go ahead and take us out.
Well, there we go, folks. Another great week talking plants, or in this case, talking trees, one of my favorite categories. And thanks, Matt Morgan from Davey Tree. That was so cool. I got to learn so much from him, so I appreciate it. But the huge thanks goes to all of our listeners for tuning in and listening every week. We love it. Come back next week for more garden fun. And please share us with somebody that you love. We'd love that. Bring them along for some more fun. And don't forget, trees are awesome. They do so much for us. I cannot list all the benefits for them. For me personally, they just make me feel good. They improve my mood. And then my mental and emotional health, I think, is just boomed and buoyed by being around trees. I love it. And like I was told by the tree circus, trees ultimately give us friends. And I think with Matt, we made another friend.
Yes.
So hopefully we'll have him back in the future to learn even more. And I cannot wait. Trees are where it's at. I know it's hot right now, folks, but when things cool down here in the fall, it's going to be time to plant. So until then, happy gardening to you all. And please, never stop growing.
Trees.
Yes. There we go.